Hey friends, welcome to today's video, which is kind of a bit sad, really, as a music appreciation vid, because I don't know if you've heard the news, but legendary icon Ozzy Osbourne dies at 77, which we kind of knew it was gonna. We saw, with having Parkinson's, but I want to talk about Ozzy as, to me, as a listener, a great singer, great. Um, he's, to be honest, I think the early Sabbath records, when you look at them, when you listen to them from a standpoint, the first two albums sounded very much like the Beatles. Uh, because I've heard that, and I always thought, and no one ever saw it from my standpoint, but the production, from a production standpoint, if you hear the Beatles' first album and you hear Sabbath's first album, you hear that raw production. Um, okay, they don't sound the same. Sabbath are more heavier than the Beatles to start off with. Um, and the Beatles are obviously more lighter. But they sort of had their um, their roots, and their ups and downs and everything. But the thing you have to point is, I remember when I heard Paranoid for the first time, I thought, wow, what a song. What an iconic riff from Tony. What an iconic, Bill Ward belting the drums and. But to be honest, that when I thought, oh, Paranoid really wasn't. It was a good song, but I liked the riff and everything. But when I heard Iron Man, I thought, what a tune. And they gone for sort of in the beginning, they sort of had that Led Zeppelin sound. Um, they sort of had that sort of, you know, Led Zeppelin, Beatles sound. Um, you can hear a little bit of um, Sabbath. They're a band that's got everything. Prog, psychedelia. They're not just. They weren't just a heavy band. A lot of people, there's like Planet Caravan and I'm trying to think. Um, and songs like Never Say Die, which was not one of the best songs they did with Ozzy, but um, you know, and Ozzy even wrote a ballad in Sabbath, Changes, and he redid that with Kelly, and um, I think, I think that's more, Changes. Even listening to the Sabbath version is still, that's just an Ozzy song, isn't it? It's like when Paul McCartney or John Lennon went and wrote a song for the Beatles, and it wasn't a Beatles song, it was one of their songs. I think, was it John or Paul? Yeah, Strawberry Fields, that was the one. That was a John Lennon piece, but it was, because Paul McCartney didn't write it, it ended up being a B-side. But it was a fantastic, Strawberry Fields is one of the most iconic numbers, which probably we'll talk about in another video. But I grew up with Sabbath as a kid, and then as a teenager, well, my early teens listening to Sabbath, and then my later teens listening to Ozzy solo, um, and I thought that um, you know, Sabbath with um, Sabbath with Ozzy obviously was the real true Black Sabbath. But I also think I want to say this here before I talk about Ozzy solo. I think Sabbath with Dio was also, I think because it just didn't work with other lead singers. They tried and it failed. There's only ever been two lead singers in Sabbath that have worked for me, which is Ozzy and Ronnie James Dio. Other people might prefer Sabbath with Hughes or Sabbath with Gillan. But anyway, we're just going to talk about Ozzy here. So Ozzy solo. Uh, oh yeah, and then Ozzy with Lemmy. He sang on a Motorhead record. Um, and then the same record that Motorhead did an Ozzy tune, which is the Hellraiser album, which was kind of disliked by Motorhead fans. But I don't know. I think Motorhead was sort of going down that sort of bubblegum uh, route. But it's still a Motorhead album, probably one of the worst ones. But to me, yeah, it wasn't a bad album. Um, it had some classic tunes on there, March or Die, which was the last tune on it. Um, it had some strong songs on there. But yeah, Ozzy sang on The Nicest Guy, I'm the Nice Guy After All. And it's not written, but Ozzy, you can tell Ozzy and Lemmy had a fantastic relationship because Lemmy actually wrote Mama, I'm Coming Home, which is a great Ozzy song. But it's a song that Lemmy wrote for Ozzy. Um, and Ozzy did write songs. I know there's been people that said no, he didn't write songs. He'd always pick other people to write songs for him. But he did write a few songs.